Morning, history class. This is Mrs. Wilson Reed's Mystery of History again. I have a little change of scenery because it's super nice outside, so I think we should all do our work outside today, if possible. If you hear noises with my children, my two little ones are playing over there, and they're just, if they distract you, you just know that they distract me all the time, so it's good. All right, so we are on lesson 73, Dante Alighieri, poet of the Middle Ages. I actually like poetry, so hopefully this will be interesting. All right. We have recently studied a famous philosopher, a famous scientist, and a famous merchant of the Middle Ages. Can you name them? It seems only fair to add a famous poet to this collection of extraordinary biographies. Probably none is more magnificent for this time period than Dante Alighieri. His most well-known work, The Divine Comedy, is completely out of this world. Literally, it's a story about heaven and hell. Dante was born in Florence, Italy. He did not have a particularly easy childhood because his mother died when he was quite young and his father died by the time he was 18. But something else happened to him when he was just 9 years old that affected him the rest of his life. He met a pretty little girl. This little girl was obviously very special to Dante because even as a child, he was completely taken by her. In his later life, he fondly wrote about their first meeting. Here's what he wrote. At that moment, I say most truly that the spirit of life, which hath its dwelling in the secret chambers of the heart, began to tremble so violently that the least pulses of my body shook therewith. And in trembling, it said these words, Deus frati mi, que vienes domitera bihi. Behold, a deity stronger than I, who, coming, will rule me. From that time forward, love quite governed my soul. Dante and this girl met again when he was 18. His feelings were as strong as before. With more maturity than he had at 9, he was able to put his deep thoughts into beautifully profound words. And he did. For years to come, Dante wrote of his love for this girl. The young woman of whom Dante was so fond was named Beatrice. We were unsure if she had the same feelings for him, if any at all. It would appear not because Beatrice married someone else, but in the most odd and romantic way, this obstacle didn't stop Dante from writing his love for her. He just didn't use her name to protect her honor. You can hear Chandler. But like a scene from a terribly sad movie, Beatrice, the enchanting beauty, died suddenly. She was only 24 years old. It moved Dante in his deep grief to write the tender words found in La Vita Nuova, which is Latin for the new life. He gently wrote of her as being possibly just too special for this mortal world, and this time he was bold enough to use her name. Dante wrote, Beatrice is gone up into high heaven, the kingdom where the angels are at peace. Such an exceeding glory went up hence, that it woke wonder in eternal sire, until a sweet desire entered him for that lovely excellence, so that he bade her to himself aspire, counting his weary and most evil place, unworthy of a thing so full of grace. I share all of this with you because the love and death of Beatrice had something to do with Dante's greatest work, The Divine Comedy, but we're not there yet. Let me fill in the parts of the poet's life before he began to write for his most famous work. Though it took a long time, Dante found that his heart could mend. He met and married Gemma Donate, and they had several children together. Dante found great fulfillment in studying philosophy and theology. He was especially fond of the works of Albertus Magnus and St. Thomas Aquinas. We studied Aquinas in lesson 68. While philosophy was stimulating to Dante's mind, politics proved to be more challenging. Dante found that he was caught in the old debate between emperor and the pope, the debate about who should have the final authority in the Holy Roman Empire. Though the debate had dwindled after Gregory the Seventh and Henry the Fourth, it still simmered and sizzled from time to time. I'm super not good at reading. Never mind. Okay. When the debate was in question, Dante felt the emperor should be more powerful than the pope. He was a great advocate or strong believer of the separation of church and state and supported the emperor, Henry VII, in every way possible. This included writing a piece in 1312 called De Monarchia, which boldly explains Dante's viewpoint. But, like Beatrice, Henry VII died suddenly, leaving Dante again with unfulfilled ambitions. The man he supported and poured so much energy into was gone. Furthermore, his strong support of the emperor cost him his position in government matters. He was exiled from his homeland of Italy for many years. Knowing now the background of Dante, his losses in childhood, his infatuation for Beatrice, his love of philosophy and religion, his struggles with politics, and his unfortunate exile, you will better understand his final years. In particular, you will better understand 1318, the year he wrote the Divine Comedy. He seemed to write with the hope of bringing understanding to the meaning of his life and trying to make sense of all he believed about God. Let me describe this great masterpiece, the Divine Comedy. One of the things that make the Divine Comedy so unique and so amazing is its structure. Like a genius architect, Dante built the entire poem on the number 3 to represent the perfect Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. There are 3 main parts or canticles to the poem. Each of these contains 33 cantus. Dante used 33 to represent the number of years of Christ's life on earth. Each cantu is written in a group of 3 lines, with the appearance that every other line rhymes. Unfortunately, when we translate the poem from Italian to English, we lose the graceful flow of these rhymes. That is truly our loss. I guess we have to learn Italian. As for content, the Divine Comedy reads like a supernatural journey. As an expression of Dante's faith in God, he leads the reader through a tour of the afterlife, or what he believes the afterlife to be like. The first part of the poem is titled Inferno. It describes in glory detail Dante's idea of a visit to hell. In his imagination, Dante is guided through 9 levels of a deep, dark pit with the help of an old Roman poet named Virgil as his guide. Written like historical fiction, Dante uses the names of real people from history throughout the entire poem. Without apology, he lets the reader know who he thinks will suffer eternally in hell. He places the lesser of the evil people on the higher levels of hell and the worst of them at the bottom. To the alarm of the church, Dante wrote of seeing a few of the popes in this dark place. Wow, go Dante. The second part of the poem is called Purgatorio, or Purgatory, a supposed waiting place between heaven and hell. In this section, Dante is surrounded by people on 9 different levels who are working towards heaven, carrying out different tasks. Of course, the Bible does not describe this kind of in-between place, nor does the Bible teach that anyone can work out their salvation. See Ephesians 2, 8 through 9. Dante was again using his imagination here, but he did such a good job of it that many people today still talk about purgatory as if it really exists. The third part of the poem is titled Paradiso. It is Dante's idea of paradise, or heaven. Do you want to guess who Dante uses as his guide in heaven? It is Beatrice. I told you she had something to do with his greatest work. Because she was the closest thing he knew to heaven on earth, he imagined her being the celestial one in paradise to greet him. In the poem, Beatrice takes Dante to what he describes as 9 levels of heaven, each with its own increasing beauty, peace, and joy. In this fiction, Dante is also led about by Bernard of Clairvaux, the monk who inspired the masses to carry out the Second Crusade. Now that's Mildred barking. But in a sweet and reverent way, Dante's relationship with Beatrice in the poem pales in comparison to being in the glorious presence of God. In what he imagines as complete awe of the Lord, Dante chooses not to use any words to describe him. He speaks of the Lord only in terms of an incredible luminous light that is completely beyond man's comprehension. Like petals of a rose, Dante descriptively arranges the throngs of heaven around God and ends with paying tribute to that love that moves the sun and other stars. I could try to summarize this poem more for you, but it's like trying to describe music written by Mozart, or a painting by Renoir, or a sculpture carved by Michelangelo. I'm afraid my words are inadequate. We call great works like these classics because they stand out as exceptional works throughout time. You may be too young now to appreciate all the classics, but my hope is that as I expose you to them, you will begin to absorb them one by one, and that as you grow, you will take time to know the classics better. especially Dante's The Divine Comedy. Of course, to really appreciate it, you might want to learn some Italian first. So that was lesson 73.